Hello there, and welcome once again to the Mayor's Magazine. I'm Mick Cornett, the Mayor of Oklahoma City, and this is the Mayor's Magazine, our show for September 2012. Glad you're with us. We're going to get started learning more about the Arts Council and an assessment that's going on to determine the quality and the value of certain programs that are going on. And with me are Sherry Rhodes and Councilman Gary Mars. They are the co-chairs of the Arts Council for Oklahoma City. Welcome to the Mayor's Magazine to both of you.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Sherry, what's your involvement with the Arts Council? How long have you been involved?
Since I moved here in 1981.
So that's a long time.
It is.
I don't want to do the math,
value.
but I think that's 31 years.
Probably shouldn't have named the date and given it away. That's right.
Yeah, and Councilman Mars?
Oh, a long time. I've been just started out as a volunteer down at the festival, and it seems like I've been involved in it ever since, and just came off a term as the president of the Arts Council Board.
Well, the Arts Council does so many different things. People are familiar with the Arts Festival, which takes place every spring, usually in April. But there are so many other projects, and really I think that's the focus of this new assessment that's going on. Sherry, why don't you tell us about some of the areas that you all are looking at, and really some of the offerings, because a lot of people in Oklahoma City might not know all of the different things that the Arts Council does for the community.
I think that's probably true. The Arts Council, a large thrust is what they call their community arts programs that is focused on trying to bring the arts to what we would say underserved populations, predominantly children and adults. And to do that, they have 5 separate programs that they operate at 50 locations that literally serve 17,000 people. And, you know, pretty much just down the street at the Metropolitan Library System, they do neighborhood arts, where you have artists who come in and have performances for the kids. They have Play in the Parks, probably something the city is well familiar with. Mm-hmm. They have Arts After School, where they bring artists into our public schools for arts enhancements, particularly for those kids that just don't have that available in their schools. And then we also serve special populations, the elderly, that often that's a very difficult access for them to get is to the arts. So it's been a program that's been operating for 30 years. And we were talking today, we kicked it off, our assessment. This is the first time we've ever really been public about it. Mm-hmm. So we appreciate so much being here today.
Yeah, and Gary, you and I are old enough to have gone to school when schools had arts programs in the school. It was an integral part of what you learned in school, but that's not necessarily the case today.
That's true, and that's one of the focus of the community arts program, and especially the Arts After School program. Unfortunately, when school systems have to cut, which they've had to do in recent years, typically arts is one of the things that goes first. So we've been able to get into a few of those schools and offer programs after school with actually have artists go in and teach art. And for some of those children, it's the only exposure they have to arts at all. And that's what really interests us, is to catch them early. You know, if you catch kids early with something and get them interested, that's what really makes the most difference. So that's one of the Arts After School is an important program for us.
Might be what keeps a kid in school. You know, if they just lack the inference or in other areas, sometimes it can be arts or sports or something like that keeps a kid in. What about Play in the Park program?
Well, Play in the Park is in conjunction with the Oklahoma City Parks Department and works during the summer, where it gives the kids something to do in the summer instead of just out on the streets, so to speak. And again, it's another exposure to the arts. And it may be, if they're not in an Arts After School program, it may again be the only arts that they're put in front of them. And so it's an integral part of the total park program during the summer. And the Arts Council has been involved in that for quite a few years.
Sherry, what type of artwork is done in the Play in the Park program?
I think it's predominantly visual art that is, inexpensive art supplies that the kids can have access to. So often they don't have those supplies, and so I think the Arts Council supplies those, the artist does that. There also is great programming for theater participation, that the kids can learn how to play act and do things like that allow them to find their own creativity in a way that perhaps they have not yet before.
I was not familiar with the Teen Advisory Council. Can either one of you speak to that program?
The Teen Advisory Council is it's kind of like a teen board for the Arts Council. You get teenagers involved in it. They actually stay focused on what they can do to help the Arts Council. They help us with some of our events during the year. And then they have their own agenda where they'll talk about arts for themselves. They do actually do some art and have a little arts festival, sell some of their art sometimes. So it's just taking those ones that we got when they were little, now that they're teens, continuing to keep them interested in art and be involved with the Arts Council.
Now, I mentioned earlier that what you're actually doing is an assessment of these programs, and so what does the assessment consist of?
Well, as I said, we've been operating these programs for 30 years. We have participants, but we've not yet taken a serious look at, how we're doing it, who we're serving. Can we do it any better? Can we perhaps create a model that other organizations might use? We want to look at it and try and assess it, and then look ahead to what should it be. If we were going to change it, if we were going to better serve the constituents that we want to reach, how do we do that? And so the plan is that by February, we will come out with a plan that will help us move forward into the future with some new ideas and some solid evaluation.
Mm-hmm. And how's the assessment going, Gary?
Well, it just started. Our consultant was in town for the first time for today, and we had a meeting. They're meeting with focus groups, which are some of the organizations that participate in that program now, maybe organizations that want to and haven't in the past. To try to put together an assessment, as Sherry said, of what we're doing now and what we might do. Are there organizations that could partner with us in the future that we haven't done? And to try to make sure that the program we've got going is doing well, and that do we need to change it in any way to better serve in the future, and hopefully grow the program. We'd like to see it grow as much as we can support financially and keep it going.
Let's switch subjects slightly to the arts. I'm forgetting the name now of the arts fair.
The Arts Festival.
The Arts Festival.
Yes.
I drew a blank there for momentarily. The Arts Festival, which is every spring and draws hundreds of thousands of people downtown. Can you kind of give me an update on the Arts Festival? I am assuming it continues to grow in stature every year.
Well, I can say from a volunteer, it certainly does. I mean, I've been on various committees. Gary certainly has led more than that, but it is one of the top festivals in the country, continues to be one of the top festivals. It is actively sought by artists to participate in. I mean, there's a jury that goes on each year to try and select the artists. And I would say that if people are polled on the street and say what's one of their favorite things that they can do in Oklahoma City, it would be the Arts Festival. I mean, I think that would be my assessment.
I think it is too. And the exciting thing for the Arts Festival in the last few years is our involvement in the new Myriad Gardens Park. And we took over like half of it the first year because it was still under construction, and then we had the whole park to be involved in. So when you take the revamped Myriad Gardens Park, and you add that to our artist row, and you add that to our food court, which is everybody's favorite down there, it's one of the most dynamic festivals we have, and it's kind of the kickoff to spring in Oklahoma City.
Website information?
Gosh, I think you stumped. I would say if you look on the web and look for the Oklahoma City Arts Festival,
it's right now at the bottom of the screen.
Thank you. That's much easier.
We've got it on there. But if you'd like to volunteer and be a part of the Arts Festival, your help is very much needed. If you want to do something besides eat and buy art and be a part of it, they would love to have you. Sherry Rhodes and Gary Mars are the co-chairs of the Arts Council of Oklahoma City, undergoing an assessment on all of the offerings that their organization offers. And I know that on behalf of the citizens of Oklahoma City and certainly the volunteers that you all help coordinate, thank you very much. And we're certainly a better off city because of your efforts.
Thank you
very much.
More on the Mayor's Magazine when we get back.
Did you know 1/3 of an average landfill is made up of packaging material? Why be part of the problem? Recycling is as easy as rinsing and throwing. No need to sort. Set out the little blue bin on your regular trash day. Now it even pays to recycle. Each week, one lucky Oklahoma City resident will win $100 just for setting out their little blue bin full of the proper recyclable materials. Be part of the solution. Start recycling today.
Welcome back to the Mayor's Magazine. In this segment, we're going to talk about the YWCA and its attempts to take on domestic violence. And with us, we have Jan Perry. She is the CEO of the YWCA for Central Oklahoma. And then Chris Frankfurt is one of 6 members on the board. Welcome to the Mayor's Magazine to both of you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Jan, it's so disappointing, but traditional almost in Oklahoma that we have domestic violence issues. So if someone just moved here and is not really aware of that pressing aspect of our culture, why don't you bring people up to date and talk about just how serious the problem is?
Oklahoma, I've been at the YWCA for 16 years now, and as long as I can remember, we've been in the top 15 for women killed by men. We are currently 11th in the nation. In the first 10 weeks of the year in Oklahoma City, we had 22 homicides. 11 of those were domestic violence deaths. The number just continues to rise, and there's such a link with child abuse. So when you look at where we rank for domestic violence, 1 in 4 women will be a victim. And then look at child abuse, teen pregnancy, so many of those things that domestic violence is an underlying systemic cause for. So we're really working to make sure the community understands and begins to say, not now, not here in our community, or will we accept it.
And civic leaders like Chris Frankfurt are getting involved. Chris, what's the business community and the civic community's responsibilities in something like this?
Well, first of all, I think they need to be made aware of the fact there's a real problem out there. And so that's part of our campaign, is to bring public awareness and to work with the corporations and let them know how much it really does affect their employees and the time loss and how many employees they lose because of domestic violence. So number one is an awareness thing that we have to do to bring to them. We're hoping to create enough awareness that they want to do some volunteer work with the Y, and to just spread the word around that there is a safe place for women who are victims of domestic violence, that there's a place for them to go. And that is really one of the big issues, is letting people know there is a safe place for them to go. Even though there's a safe place, a lot of times it's very full. So we're getting ready to trying to cure that and build a larger place.
Well, Jen, the resources can go in a lot of different directions here. You can put efforts into try and combating domestic violence on the front end, keep it from happening, having lessened the impact. At the same time, you have real problems and women and children who need help, and so you have resources you have to direct in those areas. Right. How do you deal with that conundrum of having really 2 sets of funding issues?
Well, it's like in many fields, medical field, everything. You know, we have to address that immediate need, and then we look at the prevention. We really address both of that. We look at primary is keeping those victims safe right now. That has to be primary. And then as we move forward with that, we work with trying to help break the cycle, and we really focus on that with helping them learn how to identify signs and symptoms, hopefully as they move on to a safe relationship, that they can identify that. And then we also work in the schools to help do prevention education with the youngsters around dating violence and how to recognize and refer that. But we do, with the children that are in our services, as with the adults, we do that trauma intervention where we try to help them begin to heal from what's happened to them right now, and then move on to a life free of the violence.
And Chris, there's a capital campaign going on right
Yes.
now, because there are capital needs for the YWCA.
Right. Well, the biggest thing we need is more room. This emergency shelter now holds 55 people. And we're going to build a new shelter where we can have 85 up to 120 people housed. Unfortunately, we need the space. People have been turned away, and the statistics are very bad for people who do not get help. The numbers are people that are killed because of domestic violence that don't get help. So we really are stressing trying to build a bigger shelter for the emergency shelter, and then the old emergency shelter, which holds 55 people now, we're going to remake into a facility that will allow people to stay up to 6 months, so that it's not a short-term thing, so they have enough time to really try and get their feet on the ground. And as Janice said many times, the longer that we have someone that we can counsel and work with, the better chance that they will break away from the domestic violence situations they're in. It takes women several times, the average of 7 times, to come to the emergency shelter to finally get away. Because when you think about leaving a situation and where they have no support of any kind, no money, no nothing except what's on their back when they leave a situation. It takes a while to really get your feet on the ground. And we have counseling, we have services. The Y is wonderful about all the services they provide, but you have to give them, some people need just longer time. So this extended stay area is something new. Most shelters, 6 weeks, is as far as you go. But this is going to be up to 6 months, and it's something we don't think anyone else is doing in the United States. It's giving people more time to get their feet on the ground, to finish up whatever they knew so they can get out and be a responsible person in the community.
Well, Jen, there's two sets of information I want to make sure that we get out. One is if a woman is watching this show and is the victim or feels that she might soon become a victim, what should she do? And then the second part of the discussion, I think, is if maybe you yourself are not a victim, but you know someone who is or might be, what you should do. So let's first take this first person incident. If a person out there is being abused or feels like they might be being abused or a victim of domestic violence, what should they do?
Probably the very first thing is to call the hotline. We have staff that are on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, who can help them assess the lethality, the dangerousness of their situation, and help them establish a safe plan if they need to, help them get them into shelter or connect them with services. So that number is 1-800-522-SAFE. That's actually a statewide safe line. We answer that at the YWCA. It's an Attorney General's, it's operated through them, but we facilitate that. And we can connect people to anywhere they need to if they need to get out of this area or get from another area here. And we can help them with those immediate needs. There's trained staff. That's key. There's somebody on the other end that understands the situation and realizes how dangerous it can be, especially if a victim considers leaving. So the second part of that is really the same thing. If you think you know someone and you need to figure out how to help them, first one is get them that number, but you always want to get it to make sure that that's safe because you could endanger them, and or to call that number themselves. And that number, there's somebody at the other end that can always connect them or provide the help they need.
And what type of people are answering the phones? I assume that there's quite a bit of training that has to go into these people because they're giving critical information.
We do. Most of them have a degree in a social service type background. Some were connected with that, and then we do extensive training. We are the only certified shelter, and by law in Oklahoma you have to be certified through the Attorney General's office. We're the only one in Oklahoma County, and we serve Oklahoma County and surrounding areas. So they go through an extensive training, both hard copy and hands-on, to make sure that they're answering appropriately.
How are we doing on resources for the operations of that part of the unit? I mean, if someone calls, are they going to be put on hold? Is the phone extended period of time? Or are there enough operators to handle the workload?
It depends on the point in time that they happen to call. We try to make sure that we're connecting with them immediately, not to put someone on hold. Sometimes that happens. If so, we try to have a quick assessment of which call do I have to get to first, but we try to answer all of them in a very timely manner. And remember, we're getting them calls from all over the state, so we do try to make sure the resources are there to handle that.
Right. Chris, what sort of response are you getting on the capital side as you go out
Wonderful.
to the business leaders and try to look for these larger dollars that are needed to build this facility?
Well, we've gone to many sources, and the response is wonderful. When people hear the problem, so many people, I guess we live in a bubble and we just don't realize that it's going on. When people really hear about the statistics about what is happening, people are more than willing to help. It's not, you don't have to do a sales job. It's a matter of just informing people, and they say, what can I do to help? And it's been very gratifying. It really, truly has. And I think at the same time, we're still accomplishing that one thing we want to do, education, letting people know what's happening.
All right. We're going to put some information on the screen that will allow people to get more information on the YWCA and the capital campaign. Right. The information's up there now. So thank you both for what you're doing, Jan, as running the organization. And Chris, please give the board our best, and good luck on the capital campaign.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Jan Perry and Chris Frankfurt with the YWCA. Such a good cause. Get out there and support it if you can. And if you are a victim of domestic violence or know someone who is, please take action. As Jan gave, those numbers are startling. startling. So many in our homicide rates are victims of domestic violence. And as we all know, these are the types of events that we can avoid if we get action early. So I urge you to do so. We'll have more in the Mayor's Magazine right after this.
Did you buy the flashlight and the batteries?
Yes.
Did you make sure we're not missing anything in the first aid kit?
Yup.
Did you go through the plan with the kids again?
Yes.
The more you prepare today, the more you'll be able to reduce the devastating effects of a tornado, an earthquake, a power outage, or any other disaster. Get a kit, make a plan, be informed. Visit ready.gov.
In Oklahoma, the sights and sounds of severe weather are all too familiar. Do you know what to do when you hear an outdoor warning siren?
I'm Frank Barnes, Oklahoma City Emergency Manager. In Oklahoma City, the sirens sound to warn you that weather conditions may produce a tornado.
That's your signal to take shelter and seek information about where severe weather could strike.
And remember, an all-clear signal does not sound. Always monitor the weather conditions until the threat has passed.
Welcome back to the Mayor's Magazine. 75 years ago, the citizens of Oklahoma City were preparing for a very big event. They were preparing to open the Civic Center Music Hall. And now, 75 years later, we are ready to proudly have a 75th anniversary. Elizabeth Gray is here. She's on the board of directors of the Civic Center Foundation. Welcome to the Mayor's Magazine.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
What an exciting event. This must
Very
be fun
exciting
for you guys.
Yeah, it's going to be a grand birthday bash.
Yeah. So this is a one-night event. Can you give me the details on what's coming up here at the end of September?
Yeah, absolutely. On September 27th, we'll be celebrating the 75th anniversary. It'll start out with a grand dinner for all the sponsors that have generously donated to this grand event, and then it goes to the Thelma Gaylord Theater, where the resident companies of the Civic Center, Canterbury Club, Lyric Theater, the Philharmonic, they're going to be putting on a performance for the history of all 75 years of the Civic Center. And then after intermission, the big feature performance will be Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons.
Wow,
Yep.
That's pretty exciting.
It is.
Frankie Valli coming to Oklahoma City. That's pretty cool. As many of our citizens will recall, the Civic Center Music Hall, or what was then known as Municipal Auditorium, opened in 1937 as a WPA project, and it was really the result of a problem the city was facing with railroad lines. So they moved a series of railroad lines and built three wonderful Art Deco buildings in their place: the County Courthouse, the City Hall, and what is now called the Civic Center Music Hall. And so through 75 years, you can only imagine the number of events and famous people who have come to Oklahoma City and entertained us in sports and in music. What type of stories are conjured up as we get ready to remember the 75th anniversary?
I think it's just all the memories of how it started out as the municipal auditorium holding political speeches, political debates, garden clubs, garden shows, dog shows, the Oklahoma Kennel Club, fantastic boxing tournaments, basketball tournaments. It's really just been a great venue for the city for all types of performances.
And you were telling me that it's believed Eleanor Roosevelt was part of the very first opening of the Civic Center. She came in to give a speech. It was, of course, part of the WPA, her
Right.
president's signature campaign.
Yeah, absolutely.
How exciting that must have been.
Yeah, it was very exciting. There's been many presidential candidates and presidents come through. President Eisenhower has spoken at the Municipal Auditorium, what was formerly known before, and it's really been a great venue for both political and civic activities.
The citizens of Oklahoma City have twice offered additional funding into the building. Back in the 1960s, there was considerable funding, and that ended its athletic days. And since then, it's been pretty much a music hall. And then, of course, in MAPS, there was $53 million of that original penny on the dollar sales tax that went in there to really create a modern facility inside that same Art Deco facility. And so if you just drive by the Civic Center Music Hall, you might have no idea what it looks like on the inside, because it is really a different experience once you get in.
Yeah, it's the renovations that both the MAPS program and the Civic Center Foundation have put into the building has been extraordinary. It's nationally renowned for its acoustics. We recently did a handrail project to make the theater safer for all visitors and guests. And we have great plans for the future and are going to continue to raise funds to help the building stay in pristine condition like it is now.
If you have driven in front of the Civic Center Music Hall this summer, you've seen a lot of dirt because the park that sits between Civic Center and City Hall has been under complete renovation. Your thoughts on the renovation, how it's going?
We're being told that it's on track, and it'll be green and luscious with trees by the end.
Well,
So-
we are airing the show throughout the month of September, so be sure and get by and check out the progress of the park. But we think it's going to be a real addition to downtown's park offerings, and along with the botanical gardens that opened up last year, and then of course the Maps 3 Park, which will be opening up here in the next few years. The parks in downtown Oklahoma City have certainly changed. All right, let's sell some tickets for this event on
Yes.
September 27th. What should people do?
There's a pre-sale going on right now, so if you're already involved with the Civic Center and through Celebrity Attractions, you'll probably be receiving an email this week. And you can buy your tickets this week, and then for the general public, they go on sale August 27th.
Roughly a couple of thousand tickets.
A couple. Our sponsorships have been really extraordinary. That's the reason why the ticket price of $75 is what it is, because our sponsorships have been great. The Chickasaw Nation is our presenting sponsor, along with Devon and Chesapeake, and they've really made it possible for this to be a great night.
So people should not wait. If they miss this date, what's coming up this fall inside the Civic Center? What programming should people enjoy?
The Philharmonic series, through its pop series, is putting on some really unique shows, both classic and kind of a modern twist on old classics. The Celebrity Attractions, of course, always has great shows. Jersey Boys from Frankie Valli is kind of touring recently, but there's some great ones coming up.
All right, Elizabeth Gray serves on the board of the Civic Center Foundation. Thanks so much for coming on the
Thank you.
Mayor's Magazine.
I appreciate it.
And we thank all of our guests, and I hope you will take a chance to come out and visit downtown Oklahoma City on September 27th and be a part of the 75th anniversary of the Civic Center Foundation. And if you can't make it, then be sure and visit the Civic Center this fall. You're going to really enjoy the new park, and certainly that building deserves your attention and the gratitude to all the people that are behind the scenes helping us allow to enjoy it. And that includes Elizabeth Gray. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's going to do it for this edition of the Mayor's Magazine. We'll be back next month with another show. Hope you'll join us then.
I'm Lee Criswell with Street Maintenance. Help us while we repair your city streets. Please slow down and be alert in all work zones.